Anthropic has basically rolled out their own dedicated infrastructure that standardizes the run of every single one of your skills so that, it's basically going to work the exact same every single time. They also standardized OAuth, so connections. No longer do we have to wrangle a bunch of different API keys and juggle them around in a .env file, which is really intimidating if you're a non-developer, by the way. Now it's just a one-click OAuth thing. And they basically taken this concept of running skills and then just put it on the internet in a very repeatable, reliable, sort of containerized way, where you can also very easily predict how much money you're going to spend because you're just using Anthropic usage, tokens after all. So it's a big W. It's a massive W for people that were previously building automations on things like Make.com, n8n, and so on and so forth, but wanted to start taking the next step towards a more agentic solution. And I think realistically, the second that they slap some sort of visual layer on top of it, because right now it's just mostly text-based, you chat with it like you chat with an agent, it's going to dethrone more or less every no-code tool. So I'm all for it.
100%. It is something that Make and n8n should be extremely concerned about. 100%. And actually, what I've kind of observed with this is a lot of people have missed the point with this software in terms of what it is. It's I think just for people just to understand, because I think that was a really awesome explanation. I would say that if you think about it from this point of view, there are some use cases where you wouldn't use it and some where it just makes perfect sense. For example, if you're actually using Claude Code to build something and you're doing that manually, that's fine. But let's say you're building an application for a client. You can now build these agents that you can repeat in many different instances. And the best mental model, I think, to consider this is where you probably would have used n8n or Make.com previously to build an agent as very specific things. We can just leverage Claude to do that now. And you can do that whenever you want to. And once it gets those connections, if you're somebody who's comfortable with building out the MCP connections and doing all the whole kind of, setting how often someone should run, and you want to use Myrtle, you want to use any of the softwares for that, you can do it all within Claude Code if you want to, using some of these services. I think what Anthropic's doing here is building out an ecosystem. They're making it a lot easier. And actually, if you're building out systems and you want control of what those agents are doing, maybe Nick and I building something for 10 businesses, right? And we want to use that same agent 10 different times. This makes this a million times easier to do. One thing I would say as well from Anthropic's point of view is looking at the dashboard, it definitely is built for coders. It is not built for somebody, who's just coming into the, no-code universe. Everything gives you an insane level. It's like a coder's room, basically. But if you're not familiar with a lot of the terminology, dude, your head's going to be spinning for a few seconds. I actually remember I watched the 60-second trailer and I was like, man, it was like, I actually finished it and I was like, what did I just watch? I was like, what did I just watch? Because it was basically just this amalgam of screens and code and buttons. And I was like, I'm actually not sure what this does still. And so I had to go do some research on it and use it to figure out what was going on. And I think if it's taking me more than a minute to kind of just dig under the surface, it's definitely worth explaining and talking about on the podcast.
Yeah, 100%. I think they unfortunately dropped the ball on that. And they're speaking to a very technical sort of dev-rel sort of style audience. When in reality, the applicability of this is much, much bigger than just people that are super, super big into coding. But yeah, I agree. I think it went over a lot of people's heads, and I tried to simplify that by just showing a quick example in the video. One thing that I just built out, for instance, just as a brief example, is a proposal generator app. It's my stereotypical and prototypical example for new automation people because it solves a pretty important problem, which is the generation of a sales asset. So it's something that's in effort towards a sale, which I always say, if it's something that improves your ability to sell, it's something that's worth building. If it's something that organizes your back end or whatever, screw that. But if it's in the pursuit of a sale, it's something that you should actually spend your time on. So it's usually my demo that I build in Make.com, in n8n, and other no-code platforms, and I try and get people acquainted with automation for the purposes of making money. And back in the day, kind of before, what you had to do in Make or n8n is you had to weave together 5 or 6 different platforms, right? You needed some sort of form platform. So maybe that was your Jot form or your Hello form or your type form or whatever. And that would take a quick little input that you'd use in order to send to PandaDoc or something like that, which would then create the asset, so on and so forth. And this whole process of building it might realistically have taken you an hour or two with testing and so on. What I just did, right before our call, actually for Left Click, because we're using this internally already, is I just said, hey, I want to build a proposal generator. I want it to mirror this template. And basically, after I paste in the transcript, I want you to give me a URL that I can copy and then share with the client. that has all the details, that has built-in payments, that has like built-in signatures and stuff like that. And so essentially every single time that we just send a request to that agent, it's like an API endpoint. It just sends us the URL back, and then the URL is like a beautiful proposal with signature functionality and so on and so forth. So I mean, like, I think if you're used to building these sorts of flows, and doing that manually with drag and drop, like manage agents is just so much easier. It's just text, right? But I'm aware of limitations as well. It's obviously not scheduled so far, so they don't have like a scheduling feature where you can run these agents on demand. So it's not like a one-to-one parallel with n8n, make.com, and these sort of like triggered-based platforms. What it basically does is it just does everything aside from that right now. You know, like the action modules on no-code platforms, not the triggers, it just fully replaces that with natural language. So quite a promising step in the right direction.